Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart for joining us as a sponsor. Quality Auto Mart was born in 1985. They are owned and operated by Mark and Nancy Repke. Quality Auto Mart provides all the services, repairs, and maintenance for your vehicle's needs with a 3-year auto parts and labor warranty. They offer complimentary vehicle safety inspection and estimates. Also, they offer a shuttle service, and the 4th oil change is always on them. They are located at 7307 on State Road 46 in Batesville, Indiana. Make sure you give them a call at 812-934-2301. All right, hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. Glad you guys are out there tuning in to us. Merle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very good. Got the kettle bar box.
Man,
showing you the kettle bar. When are we going to do the show on the kettle bar?
We should. That's a
Let's
great
just
idea.
do like the full show.
I'll interview you, and we'll talk all things kettle bar.
The kettle bar's coming to life.
I like it.
I'm getting excited.
I like it. Yep. Well, good deal, man. Yeah, I hope you guys are out there having a good week. I hope you don't get lost like I did this morning. I was driving over here, and I text Merle like, hey, I hit 75 north. You live in Indiana. I'm nowhere close to where I'm supposed to be.
He's come out here for 4 years straight, okay? Every week for 4 years. And so today I get a text. LOL, I'm headed to 75 north.
I hit 75 north, and I realize I'm not coming to your house. I got to turn around.
Now, sometimes, like when you're really tired because you've been working all night, I'll be like, yeah, well, gosh, he's tired.
I think I'm better when
you do worse when you sleep all night.
I think so. I think so. I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm out of coffee, though. I'm out of coffee.
Are you serious? Do we need to stop this right now and get you loaded?
No, this is my one cup. This is my one massive cup here. I don't have heart palpitations again.
Oh, that's good. Good. Yeah, we don't need those.
No.
All right. So we're going to talk about something today that every one of us is going to be able to relate to.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
All right.
Unless you work by yourself, like in a lab or in a shop, and you don't ever have to talk to anybody.
All right.
But chances are, you will relate to this show today.
All right. I like it.
We're going to talk about that guy that's in the room here that you just can't wait to be around. All right. You can't wait to you love when you get paired with him on the golf outing. You get to ride in the cart with him the whole way. You love when there's a business trip and you have to drive for 12 hours for a business meeting somewhere and you're in the confined unit of the car. Yeah. This is just the greatest guy.
Or when your boss says, hey, we got a project together, you're going to have to work with this guy.
You two are going to pair up. Yeah, you're going to pair up. Okay. Today we are going to talk about the know-it-all.
So there's a little sarcasm before.
Yeah, you really are. Don't want to be paired up with this dude. Like, this is your worst nightmare. Oh my gosh, I got a business trip and I got to go to Florida and drive with so-and-so. Oh, just shoot me now.
Yeah.
All right, but we're going to talk about the know-it-all, and obviously, we may even be guilty of some of that.
Say, if you can't think of somebody, maybe it's you.
It might be you. You've talked about that before.
Yeah.
If you can't, so we're going to talk about it, but we're also going to talk about what's behind it. So, a little bit of what is some of the psychology that makes that happen with that individual, but then also how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes we're just not very good about dealing with it, and we end up throwing some gas on the fire to make it worse. So we're going to deal with what is it, why it's irritating, those kind of things, but then how do we deal with it?
All right, okay. I like it.
Do you know, without sharing any names or anything, you got any know-it-all stories?
I do. I do. This one particular person I'm thinking of, golly, I love the guy, but he is that to a T. He is the guy we'll be talking about whatever, and it's always there's a lot of deflection. I feel like there's a lot of, well, this person failed at doing whatever to make himself look good, right? So
like his idea was always better.
Yeah, his idea was better, and the way he does it is better because, and again, instead of justifying why his way is better, he always deflects on somebody else. Somebody else did it this way, and that was just a stupid idea. I can't believe that they would do this. And it's just kind of getting that mindset of never wanting to actually admit your flaws. Like, it's okay to not be right all the time. It's okay to not have all the answers. But like, you have to actually say those words. You can't just deflect it and say like, well, they did it this way, and I knew that wasn't the right way. And just like, bro,
man, I hear you. So it's like in my brain, I'm hearing, and I've got a person in my head right now that is always big about saying, well, I tried to tell him, I gave him the solution, but no one ever listens to me. Like,
I'm like, bro, awesome. just admit that you don't know how to do it. It's okay. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, I don't know how to do a lot of things, but so definitely have someone in mind. I mean, unfortunately, if I thought harder, I probably could come up with more than just one. But that's the one that comes to mind. What about you?
Well, I want to be clear too. Like, this is not just a trash session on that personality, because seldom have I ever thought of that person, or maybe I say, since I have gotten older and understand more about that, do I think they're ill-willed? Do I think they're mean, or somehow in some vindictive sort of way? I don't think so. And so I don't want to be trash talking that way. Because I think they're well-intended people.
Yeah, I would agree.
They're trying to do the right thing.
The ones I'm thinking of for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably always some guy out there who's just, evil to the core. But I think most of these guys are not evil in that sense. But the guy I'm thinking about is like, I do totally think he's a legit good dude. Mm-hmm. But I also think that he wears you out because he's always trying to create value around himself. Mm. And it's one thing to actually show value. Like, the guy doesn't talk about coming over and how he would build your garage and do that. He actually comes over and he helps you build the garage. Okay. And so this guy that I know, man, he's always I think of him, and he's the ideas guy. Okay. Oh, well, here, if I was going to do that, and he's always throwing new ideas, but I don't see a lot of fruit come out of his hands. Mm. And it kind of gets like, oh, so-and-so's weighing in again on how I should do something. And I guess if I saw a ton of fruit coming out of him, I might go, wow, he's the dude to listen to. But I don't see it. So it makes me even more, I reject anything that he has to say. And that's a shame, because he could be saying something really helpful or good, but I tend to turn him off. So, so that's kind of the deal. Let's thank some sponsors. Let's get into this.
Let's do it. Yep. Strong Dads, we would love to thank Quality Auto Mart for coming alongside of us. An awesome sponsor for us. Really a sponsor that allows us to continue to do what to do. Check them out. Really do appreciate Quality Auto Mart for coming alongside of us. So, yep, thanks.
All right. Let's thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions also for coming alongside of Strong Dads. So for all your landscape needs or any home decor, here I go again. For any home decor, you can go to Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and they will take care of you.
Good deal. Merle, but, as we're getting ready to jump in this show, I think we kind of have to say this. Obviously, you and I, we come on these mics every week, and we talk about, our experience and things that we see other guys struggling with. And, man, I really do hope that it comes across to you guys that we are people who don't know it all. We are guys who are also trying to figure this out. We're trying to figure out how to be a strong dad, just like you guys out there. So yes, this idea of someone that you're thinking of, someone in your life that is a quote unquote know-it-all, man, I hope you're not thinking of us. I hope that that's not the case. Like we are drawing from our experience as dads. We're drawing from our experience, with you in the counseling world, myself in the fire world, kind of drawing experiences that we have seen, what failure looks like from other people and from our own personal experience. So just want to kind of put that blanket statement out there as we kind of move into this topic and this idea of guys who, have the quote unquote know-it-all mentality that hopefully it doesn't come across that we are that way, because by no means is that our intention.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that, because, whenever you put a flamethrower mic in front of your face, you sometimes can come across as, you must have the authority to speak on this issue, so you must be the know-it-all in that issue. And I think something that separates us maybe a little bit is, one, I think we try to in our shows say, listen, I've struggled with this issue, because the fact is that's how we get our material. Yeah. We talk about the things that we're not good at or we struggle with. The other thing is people choose to listen to what we do. versus a captive audience that can't leave. Sure. I mean, if somebody doesn't like or agree or thinks that we're coming off wrong, they can always hit the power button.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think that helps. And like you said, like, man, we are a work in progress. I don't want to be so self-deprecating that we think that we're total losers and failures. Because we do think, through our bumps and bruises, we've learned some things, but man, there's a ton more to learn.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, do you, so in your coaching sessions, I'm sure you can think of numerous times where a guy is struggling with something that's coming in that you're like, yeah, so do I, right?
I can't even tell you how many times I say, so actually right now I'm talking to both of us in the room right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Because sometimes the right thing, you've read the right thing, but because of your own weaknesses or insecurities or whatever, you find yourself gravitating towards certain behaviors. And, you, like you said before, you got to just call them out. You got to be able to say, I screwed that up.
Right.
And so, like sometimes guys come into me and I don't really struggle with what they struggle with, but I understand what struggle is. Other times guys come in and I feel like, here, how about let's switch chairs for a while?
Yeah.
How about So let's talk about the know-it-all, right? But let's go a little bit broader right now so that we can understand some psychology behind, let's just call them annoying behaviors, okay? Irritating kinds of behaviors. And again, this is not a blanket statement, but it's kind of maybe to help set up the mind and understanding some of this. I've said many times on the shows before that one thing, I get to work with hundreds of men every year, and I've yet to meet a man that doesn't have a fear, right? And the first man that tells you, I'm not afraid of anything, he's one that's really, that's a big red flag for me, okay? Yeah. And so we all have our fears, and our fears typically are based in our weakness. And so no man is perfect. Every man carries a weakness or two or three or four, right? And so because we have our weaknesses, it is the fear of either the failure from that weakness or the exposure of that weakness or the mess that the appearance, right? It is that weakness that we have to really double down on and figure out how we can cover it. Yeah. And so we will tend to cover it with our strength. Yeah. Okay. We'll cover it with our strength. So let's just, like an example, like I deal with a lot of guys with anger issues. They'll come in and they'll tell you, yeah, well, my wife tells me I need to come in because she says I have anger problems. And, we talk a little bit about that. And what I actually find is they're just resorting to what they know when they're pushed up against the wall, especially if they're dealing with their wife and their wife is more maybe verbally connected and she can reason through things differently and maybe more effectively in the argument. Then he will go to whatever his next strength is. And that might mean the physical part where he exerts himself with maybe some nasty words, maybe pounding on the table, maybe that growl or that look. And it's that intimidation. And if that works a couple times, you kind of get rewarded by it. Yeah. Like, well, I shut her down. Yeah. I shut her down. And so you practice that over the years. And the next thing you know, it's like you've always practiced, man, I just lose it. That guy gives me any crap, I just lose it on him. Yeah. And I pull myself back into the control over the situation. And so actually the anger is because they're afraid that they're getting ready to lose the control of the situation or be found out or be called out. And so the anger is actually just their remedy to the weakness.
Right. Man, it's so telling. Just kind of, I feel like the undertone on a lot of what you just said has to do with the pride issue, that there's so much associated with, I don't want people to know that I don't know this, right? And man, I just thinking of times when I've coached basketball before, man, I would rather have a team full of guys who are sponges, who are just average players, but are wanting to learn that, okay, I struggle with a left-hand layup. Coach, can we practice that? Versus the guy who missed a left-hand layup, and you're like, hey, man, like let's go over this. Like, I got it. Like, I'm good. I know how to do it. Man, it's just it's so telling because I feel like pride is kind of that undertone on a lot of the stuff we talk about for sure today, and the vast majority of stuff we talk a lot because men, I feel like in general, we just struggle with pride, wanting to feel like we have it all together, wanting to feel like we do know it all, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's for our spouse, for our kids. Man, I can't tell you the number of times where my girls will ask me a question and I don't want to sound like I don't have the answer. So I just, sometimes just make something up, right? And like, golly, why?
Well, you make something up with confidence in your
with
voice.
confidence, right? It's sometimes not what you say, it's the way in which you say it. It's like if I just sound like I know it, then it'll come across. But golly, I think there's so much more of the strong dad factor that comes in if you're willing to say, I don't know this, right? I'm not sure I can maybe go find an answer. I love that. I've worked for a couple of bosses before. They're like, man, there's sometimes when you ask something, I don't know it, but I know where I can go find it. I'm going to go seek that out versus just BSing me, right? And I think that plays right into this very idea of, instead of saying I know it because of the pride that's coming up in you, like taking a step back, just what you're talking about with the anger. I'm sure there's guys who they're so ingrained in shutting their wife down when a little bit of conflict comes up. It's like they can't even see outside of their own walls and realize what they're actually doing.
Yeah. And so, from my chair, I quickly say, oh, okay, he's dealing with a weakness. Okay. Which allows me to have better insight. Also allows me to have a little bit of compassion. Like he's actually, there's a fearful person in there. Yeah. He doesn't even know how to have compassion for himself because he's so covered up. But before you get all high on your horse and you think, well, that's not me, I don't have anger issues. I mean, here are some really common ones that I see. When people try to use money to impress. Right. So maybe you weren't good with strength and volume in your voice and intimidation. Maybe that wasn't your gift, but maybe you have found over the years that you have a gift of making money. And before you know it, you're 40 years old and you look around and you're carrying a thicker wallet than all your buddies. Yeah. And so you were that little pipsqueak in high school that you could never quite make your way, but now you're starting to see, wow, I'm quite the man. Yeah. And so the next thing you know, you're out really trying to impress people with your money. And so that is telling us, okay, we've got a fear here of being rejected or not respected by others. And so I will show them that I've made it with my money. So that's another one. Yeah.
But what about the idea? And the guy that I was thinking at the beginning of the show, this is to a T, the idea of pointing out other people's shortfalls and making it sound like, although because they don't want to admit that they don't have it together, instead of admitting that, they'll just show other people's shortfalls because, again, they don't want the spotlight to be on them. So if I can point out someone else's flaws, then the spotlight will be on them. I think, man, that's to a T. Is when I think of someone who thinks they're a know-it-all, this is exactly what I think of, that person who wants to shine the spotlight on somebody else because of their shortfalls.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect one. That you have guys who are always into belittling, always questioning. These are the armchair quarterbacks, and when you look at them, they're 50 pounds overweight, and they've never played a game of football in their life. Or when they did, it was 8th grade, and they sat the bench there. But they always have the greatest ideas, and so what they're really trying to do is trying to put the spotlight on everybody else's shortcomings so nobody spends the time to see their shortcomings. And so, again, it's another fear-based thing. But in the moment, if they're pretty witty, and that's what you get a lot of times with those guys, they're quick with the word, they're pretty witty, and they can just dog you so fast. And especially if they can add some humor to it and get other people to laugh at you. So this is, they make fun of. And again, listen, we all have to be able to tease each other, right? But when it's just part of their fabric, it gets old. Yeah.
So let's get into that. So I mean, the $1 million question is, because again, we can sit and point out the different flaws that people are thinking of, and we can kind of, point the finger there. But I think the $1 million question when it comes to this is, how do we effectively handle, how do we approach these people that in your mind, you're thinking of one or two people in your life that are the quote unquote know-it-all. So let's get into this idea. How can we effectively handle or kind of deal with those type of people?
Yeah. So first off, I think Before you jump to conclusions, you have to have a pattern with this person. You know, if you've just met somebody and they seem to be talking a lot and coming off with a lot of information or knowledge, don't jump to the conclusion that they're a know-it-all, because they very well could be in their niche. If you happen to be talking to them about building homes and they happen to be a home builder, they might have a lot to share and they might be in the expert realm of that. So one of the things that we look for in our work whenever we're dealing with people with what we see as a struggling or challenging behavior is we look for the pattern. And so if the pattern is trickling into every other little aspect of life, in other words, no matter what subject we bring up, this guy seems to always have the answer, right? Now we're seeing that this is a pattern. Okay. So, and I just say that because you want to be really careful not to jump to conclusions, because you'll shut down potentials and relationships, and even opening the door to get to know that person maybe way earlier than you should.
Right. Man, I think this next one, this idea of similar, again, the first one was, not making the assumptions, looking for those patterns. I think not making the assumptions that person is ill intent or has the intention that they want to come across as a know-it-all. But similar to what you said, maybe it's just their niche. This is something that I find, I do a lot of teaching in the fire service, and I'll go out and teach classes. And man, it's one of the key phrases that I always try and say is, this is not the way, it's just a way. This is the way I like to do it. Take it for what it's worth. But man, I hope that the guys that are coming to these trainings hear that, and they see that as I'm not trying to come across that I know it all, because I promise you I don't. But I think this idea of trying to, when you're thinking of that person in your life that has this know-it-all mentality, to understand that they're not, potentially, I mean, again, there's always the nuances to those, but that this person is not ill intent towards people, that they're actually, maybe that's just how they're coming across. People are just socially awkward, right? Sometimes there are just situations that they're just not comfortable being in. So just talking a lot, similar to what you said, maybe that comes across as the know-it-all mentality, but man, maybe they're just not. That's just they're uncomfortable in that situation. They're not trying to be ill intent towards people.
Yeah, and actually, I'll stretch that a little bit. When when you start to understand that they're probably not ill-intended people, they're overcompensating people, right? They're trying to cover up. Then actually, you can even find a little level of sympathy for them. Yeah. Okay, and I say that just cautiously, all right? Right. But man, that guy is so afraid of being found out that he's working 10 times harder than he needs to. Okay. And so it just helps you get into their head a little bit more to understand why they're packing so much energy into this stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So this next one, I have to ask you, because as I was reading through this is a hard one for me. So this idea of not asking them questions, but basically not giving them a stage, is how I kind of read it, and to me, maybe it's just my personality. Maybe it's who I am. I almost maybe this is a flaw of mine, where I'm just like, I want to ask you a question because I want to dig at that, because I think there's a weakness here. Right. And instead of you trying to cover it up, I'm going to continue to ask questions. So what was kind of your thought in putting this idea of not asking them questions?
Well, okay. So, and maybe I should clarify that. So, if the person is just irritating you, okay, and because they're running their mouth all the time, then you have to find ways to shut down their the answer box, okay? Because they've always got an answer for everything. And so right off the bat, you have to understand, okay, I'm just not going to engage with asking questions. So as you just said, to kind of help keep them off the stage, all right? So I'm not going to ask a lot. I'm not going to engage in that way. I'm not going to ask a lot of questions, all right? But let me go on to the next thing on that too. And this is where you have to start to get a little bit more assertive. And that is, when I work with people sometimes and I see that, oh, this guy, he won't shut up. He's really all about himself here. And I pick up on that, but he came to me for help. So that when they come to me for help, all bets are off, because I do get to give advice, because you came to me. You're paying for it, okay?
Right.
And so then I actually have to make a statement where I'll say to them, okay, I'm getting ready to talk, and you don't get to respond. I actually have to shut them down. I physically say, you're not allowed to talk. You just have to hear me out, and I want no response because I need you to take time to think about it. Right now, that takes a little bit more assertiveness on your part, and it takes some boldness. But even in doing that, what you do is you'll quickly get them to realize how hard that is for them.
Yeah.
They will come. I mean, I'll make a statement like, okay, here's what I need you to hear, and I don't want you to respond, and I'll say it, and you can see it trying to jump out of their body. But nothing. You get nothing. You just have to take it in, because them learning to listen to others is one of the things that has driven everybody crazy and has pushed them out. They're afraid to listen to others, right? And so it could be that narcissistic mindset, but they haven't engaged in that practice. And so you're going to stop asking them questions, and they're going to assume that you're always listening to them, and you're going to flip the role, and you're going to say, I'm going to talk, and you don't get to ask questions. You don't get to respond.
And with that, I think it's really important. Anytime there is that conversation, similar to what you said, that this idea of basically, and I think it's a good practice, especially if you're dealing with a high intense situation, or there's going to be friction, conflict there. I think it is important, just that idea. Hey, let me say what I need to say, and you need to sit there and listen. I think anytime you're dealing with that, there has to be a mutual respect there. So when you are dealing with these people, man, I think there just has to be that you are going into this well-intended, and you're trying to, resolve or talk to this person, but there has to be that mutual respect, because again, when you're approaching somebody who is the know-it-all mentality, if they are not feeling respected, they're probably not going to want to be apted to listen to you saying, hey, let me just speak. And so I think when we're talking to these people, again, trying to kind of work through this idea of how we deal with these people, I think the mutual respect has to be there in order for there to ever be solutions and ever be resolved.
Let me go back to what you said. If they're not feeling respected, if I'm not respecting somebody, it's also then showing my weakness. All right. It's showing my weakness, that I don't value other people and I value myself over them. And so guys will do that. Like they'll just, trash talk them or whatever and just shut them down. And so showing somebody respect, we're called to show everybody respect. That doesn't mean we like people or not like people. We are to respect everyone. Okay. And so we are to show them that respect. All right. Let's talk about then the fifth point here, and that is confrontation. So confrontation, it can be really effective, but as you said, it has to be on a foundation of respect.
Yep.
But let's just say we get to a point where we're with this guy. Maybe I do have to do a project with this guy, or I have to drive 12 hours to a business meeting somewhere, and I go, oh my gosh, this is going to be forever. Okay. Then confrontation can be the way, but confrontation does not always have to mean that it is argumentative or anything like that. Confrontation, if it's done with respect and it's done well, this is where amazing things happen. This is where you get marriages settled and all kinds of good things. Okay. But the very first thing is, you call their attention to the idea of, hey, can we talk? All right. And when we ask if we can talk, generally you're going to get a yes out of that person. With the know-it-all person, you're going to get a yes, because it's an opportunity for them to talk. But then you have to set up boundaries. And so we do this in marriage work all the time. Okay, we're going to have you guys sit down. You're going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes, but here are the boundaries. And you have to do boundaries because most of the time people have no idea when they dribble the ball out of bounds. They just keep playing their game because their minds are always on scoring the goal rather than keeping it in the field.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to put some boundaries. Okay. So we don't get to interrupt each other. We have to hear each other out. We have to check back and make sure we've heard what we thought we were hearing. So these are some basic boundaries. So, that just keeps the two of you on the right field. And then if you're really going to help this guy, you don't talk and you don't allow him to get into specifics of one event.
Okay.
You have to go into the patterns.
Yeah.
So it might be something more along this line. So Joe, I appreciate you that, we get this opportunity to drive together, but, I've got some challenges with you and you just need to know that. and I want to do better with you, and I want you to do better with me. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's both ways. And then you have to point out some of the patterns of the behavior. Joe, do you notice that you have gone through all of the guys at our company and nobody really wants to be around you? Do you notice that? Well, yeah. Okay. Do you notice that you have gone from job to job? Do you notice that, and so you point out some of the major patterns that you actually are concerned about, not to try to belittle or anything like that, but you have to point out the pattern, because if you just say, why do you have problems with friends, at work, in the workplace, you pointed out one thing and they'll have an excuse, they'll have an answer.
Yep.
So you've got to say, listen, I need you to see the pattern. Okay.
Man, that's so good, and something that again, going back to the books I've been reading from Jocko, something he talks about in this idea of confrontation, and when you're in the midst of it, is admitting your flaws first. It takes the defenses down right away from the other person. Like, man, I was on a fire, and man, I was struggling to get that search done the way it was supposed to be done. And then because then naturally there's the defenses get lowered when it's not you're not pointing that finger right at them. This idea, then we can go into maybe some of your shortfalls, but man, just this idea of when you're in the midst of that confrontation, because again, I don't think we should steer away from the confrontation. I think it's good things, but good fruit can come from that. But I think part of the early on stages of the confrontation is admitting your flaws, admitting the shortfalls that you do have, because again, I think it just lowers those defenses.
Right, and it lets them see an example.
Yeah.
Of, man, somebody can actually expose themselves that way and they didn't fall apart.
Yeah.
All right. And so this is part of how you help them, but it's also how you help the relationship. And at the end of the day, your job is not to fix them. Their job, and this is why it's irritating, their job is not to fix you.
Right.
Right. But that they think that oftentimes they'll have that savior mentality, and they think that they're doing a great service by, hey, I've got the answers for you.
Yeah.
The job here is, I need to fix me, you need to fix you.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we can help facilitate it to make it easier or better for the two of us?
Yep.
And so now we actually become more accountable to each other. Now I come up and I can speak. And next time I've noticed that you have 6 jobs in over 2 years, but we've opened the door to this conversation, and now you're complaining about your new job that you have. But now I have the place in your head and in your life where I can say, okay, hang on, dude, like this would be number 7 job. So what's going on here? Yeah. All right. And I can actually help them slow their brain down and cover their weakness by actually digging into the weakness and saying, yeah, really, this boss is not that bad. I'm just not getting what I want.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's so true. And I think the bottom line here is at the end of the day, the relationships that we have with a coworker, with a spouse, with a family member, that you're kind of pegging as that person as a know-it-all. At the end of the day, the relationship there has to be held at the utmost. You have to still hold it in high priority. So through all this, as you're working through dealing with this person, just understand that relationship, by no means is any of this meant to, ruin that relationship or be the reason that the relationship is no longer, there. So I just think as we kind of have worked through this, I think having the mutual respect because of the relationship, because you don't want to hinder this relationship, because again, similar to what you're talking about, maybe in order to even get to some of the stuff we've talked about, there has to be that initial relationship. Jenny and I, we did a high school ministry, early on, in our marriage. And one of the big things they talk about is earning the right to be heard, right? So you can't just go walk up to a high school student and say, hey, this is who Jesus is, right? You have to earn the right to speak into that person's life. And I think the same can be said about this, that, man, if there's someone in your life that maybe it's a newer relationship, a new coworker, maybe kind of, breathe some life into that relationship before you go and start speaking into some of the stuff, because if they don't even really know who you are, they don't know much about you, and you try and, bring up this idea that they're a know-it-all, it's probably going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. All right. So hopefully we gave you guys some insight in maybe a relationship, maybe at work, maybe even in the home, maybe one of your kids, maybe yourself. And I would say that because a lot of us as dads can get into the know-it-all world, and we pride ourselves on it. We're always telling our kids what to do, our wife what to do, and so part of our challenge here is to just do a little assessment on, am I valuing the relationships with the people that I do life with, and are they valuing the relationship with me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the important things is you should always ask people questions, but they should be able to ask you questions, and it should be a very similar back and forth.
Right.
But if one person's always asking a question and the other person's always having to give the answer, that's not a very healthy relationship.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Good deal, man.
Let's wrap it up.
I like it. Yeah. Hope you guys are out there. Hope you're having a good week. Man, thanks so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for Quality Auto Mart. I don't know why I can't ever get that one out.
Man. It's
and
tough.
Casey Outdoor Solutions for being awesome sponsors for us. It allows us to continue to put shows out. So in the notes on YouTube and or reaching out, man, we would love to hear from you guys. We'd love to know what you guys are thinking about some of the stuff we're putting out. We'd love to have some different topics that you guys are thinking of, and we can kind of wrestle through them together. So thanks so much for continuing to tune in.
Also, stay tuned for the kettle bar episode.
All right, I'm ready.
That's self-serving on my part, isn't it?
That's all right.
When you get your next laser engraver thing,
Right.
and then you get the self-serve.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right. So, guys, thanks again for listening. Share the show. Help us out. Like Kyle said, contact us if you need to. If we can help, then we definitely want to be part of that. So, go out there and be a strong dad. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.